This episode of the Swell Pod is brought to you in partnership with Kiln. Kiln provides flex office space for teams and individuals. Their all-inclusive set of amenities helps startups, creatives, and entrepreneurs alike get work done. Learn more about Kiln at kiln.co.
So, in today's episode, we chat with Bo Euler. Bo is a designer, an entrepreneur, and a founder of Enlisted Design, where he works at the intersection of business, data, and design to create product experiences for some of the world's most sought-after brands. His work can be found today at the Museum of Modern Art, Apple stores, Whole Foods, Target, Best Buy, and Amazon. Recently, and this is the second episode that we've done with Bo, but recently Enlisted joined Pattern to create an industry first that uses the soul of design and the science of data to create the right brand at the right time for the right consumer. Sounds pretty good, doesn't it, Josh?
Yes.
We explore a ton of things with Bo, from, English scones, some failures, some funny failures, his vision beyond Enlisted, and we dive into the experience of working with Mr. Beast on his new chocolate bar. It's a bit of Willy Wonka coming in. Anything I missed, Josh?
Well, yeah, there was a good discussion on losing some teeth, and I don't know. My favorite thing about this episode, though, was when we got into the chocolate bar and we started talking about just the attention to detail, the intentionality, going back to the connecting the dots with the story as it relates to Mr. Beast's brand, and how they infused that story and that emotional connection into the chocolate bar. Really fascinating stuff. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, agreed. It was those magical moments where something's already really good, but then just something happens, someone says something, and then the magic kind of appears, and it wouldn't have never got there without kind of the combination of people collaborating. So yeah, that was really good, wasn't it? If anyone actually hasn't heard of Mr. Beast or tried a chocolate bar, maybe you can go and look it up and order one. I'm going to order one actually for my kids, but order one. Tell us what you think on our socials. I don't know. It's I've got a soft spot for cool products like Mr. Beast. Anyhow, should we get on?
Yeah, let's do it. All right. Hope you guys enjoy.
All right. Thank you.
No, but yeah, thank you though for coming on the podcast again. We know that
for sure.
We've got one of your interviews in the can right now, and we will release those things. We just kind of had like this kind of crazy little whirlwind of stuff happen, but yeah, it's going to be good to chat with you again. And you know, it was interesting because I know, like, I actually listened back to the episode, and you know, I was like, I'm so stoked to be talking to you again. Like, there were so many good things that we got into. And I don't know, we'll see where we get to, but I know we have a lot of questions for you to follow up on, but I don't know.
All right, cool.
So we're stoked.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, thanks. And I'm going to grab a couple of things, but I can hear you.
For sure.
How are things?
Yeah, things are going well. You know, we're picking up with the podcast. You know, things are really kind of getting into a groove again. And so, yeah, you should start to see episodes coming out really, really soon. Swell, Spencer. Yeah. How's Swell going? Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, no, it's going good. You know, focusing
you see that, Spencer?
On what is it? What did you get? What did I miss?
Surprise
Josh?
appearance.
Oh, did you
He's
get
not
something
at his
delivered?
desk right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No, yeah. So how's Swell? Yeah.
Yeah, no, Swell is going well.
You
and
guys.
really the focus is that.
You guys do your homework. I'll tell you what. This is awesome. Thank you. Fantastic.
So for listeners who can't see this, yeah, we just delivered. I'm not sure if it's your number one favorite kind of snack, but this is from the Rose establishment, just a little bit down the road. And it's a funny story because we know we like to surprise our guests, and when I first phoned them, they wouldn't deliver. No, we don't do Uber Eats, we don't do DoorDash, and no, we haven't got time to deliver. I said, look, let me tell you a story. I told them a little bit of story, about
so
it, and then
funny.
this one lady said, "Do you know what? I like that. I'm going to do it. I'm going to
That's
drop it
great.
off." And so, thanks to her and the Rose establishment, you got
That's
your nice
awesome.
scones.
Thank you.
And actually, I'm going to kick off with we ended last podcast with a little kind of question around the Oakland move. Do you remember?
The Oakland move, yes, with the
and the sledgehammers and all that good stuff.
U-Haul.
yeah. Well, we heard about another
boy.
story.
All right.
Just a little one, and I'm hoping you don't mind.
Hey, I'm an open book.
I mean, we could just tell embarrassing stories.
No, that would be
instead.
fun, actually.
And I have a funny, embarrassing story that I could share, and it's about a tooth. Now, do you happen to have any tooth stories that you want to share? Anything with a tooth that's come along recently? Shall I share
share yours first, and then I'll one up you.
Well, look, with the whole family with my grandparents, it's a long time ago now, as a child, and we were eating soup that had been made by my grandmother. And lo and behold, someone bit into a tooth in the soup. And I guess I missed the first bit where someone had some tooth had flown out of their mouth. They were trying to pull the tooth out, and we didn't know where it had gone. Well, like an hour later, we all knew because someone had literally nearly swallowed a tooth. So anyway, I need to practice that story a little bit better next time. But tell us about your story.
Oh, geez. Yeah. Where do I start? It's so I've always had teeth issues, and I've got like 5 or 6 fake teeth from root canals and stuff. I've got a gold tooth. I care. Gold tooth because I was in school at the academy in San Francisco, and I couldn't afford the $100 upcharge to get the white tooth. So I'm like, whatever's the cheapest thing, give me gold. Okay, so I got in a bike crash years ago, chipped these two front teeth. Ever since then, they're just paper thin, and they crack all the time. And it's gotten to the point, I'm 40, let's say I'll be 43 in 2 weeks. And over the last year, it's like every other week they chip. It's terrible. So I keep getting it fixed. And the dentist was like, listen, Bo, like, I'm going to level with you, man. These are lost teeth. Like, nothing you can do will fix them. So you just need to get them replaced. You need to get veneers. And I'm like, no, I'm just not going to do it. So I kept putting it off, and then it kept chipping. So finally, like 2 weeks ago, I went in and got veneers. And when they do that, so they had to replace all these front teeth here, and so that they match. And so they give you these temporaries. Well, 2 days into the temporaries in my mouth, I bit into a burrito, and they broke and fell out. And I'm like, oh no. So I run to CVS, get denture, glue, whatever. So the funny story is, on Wednesday, I'm at a workshop, Tuesday or Wednesday this week. I'm at a workshop at Peterson Partners, the private equity firm. Okay. And you've got one of the partners there. You've got a couple other of the associates there, and then the client. And during the workshop, one of my teeth came flying out, and I caught it, and everybody laughed, and then I had to stick it back in, and it was just, it fell out again. So I just took it out and spent the rest of the workshop toothless. And it was so embarrassing. So embarrassing.
Well, and then we've made it worse by you telling us. So I think that's definitely a next level story. We've actually done, we're friends, aren't we, Josh, with a veneer kind of tooth artist. She does incredible work around the world around teeth. But she's a designer for teeth, and you're a designer.
How did you hear about my teeth issues, though? Who tipped you off on that one?
Oh, it was all over the internet.
No. It's like a slow-mo gif of my tooth flying out.
We can't give. Can't tell you.
So just to kind of make it a little bit even too. Like, I actually have a really interesting story with my 2 front teeth as well. Yeah. When I was in elementary school, so we were out playing basketball, and the ball hits the rim, it bounces kind of off in the distance. I go and I run for it to go and get the ball. Right behind me is the tetherball pole. Run straight into the tetherball pole. I chipped both of my 2 front teeth. Yeah. So I'm in the principal's office waiting for my parents to come pick me up to take me to the dentist. And my best friend comes in, hands like this, and he's got my teeth in his hand.
With your teeth?
Yeah, he's like, I don't know, do you want these now?
Oh no.
I was like, I guess so, but yeah, I don't know. So I empathize with you with the front teeth issue. But
so did you have to get your teeth replaced? Like, what did you do? Because you have great teeth.
No, yeah, I appreciate that. No, you can. So if you get really close, you can actually see they kind of capped them.
Yeah,
I haven't had any issues with like any other chips or anything like that. But you can see it though.
Yeah,
if you get really close.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, look.
Thanks for sharing that, though.
Yeah.
we've covered scones and teeth and got nothing to do with the content.
That's it, right? Like that's well, is that why we got together?
I know. So look, we would love to know. I mean, we had a great conversation last time, covered lots of different topics. One thing we ended on was the great story behind Pattern and the vision for the next kind of, I think you even said 5-10 years. We'd love to catch up with that. Like, how's it going? The ups and the downs of that journey.
Yeah.
And then we wanted to, after that, maybe dive into a little bit more deeper into maybe one of your projects, possibly Mr. Beast. I don't know, we'll see. But
yeah, for sure.
If you're open to that. But yeah, how's the journey going? Give us a update.
Yeah, so let me catch you up to speed. So it's been about a year, right, since we last hung out.
About a year.
Cool. So a lot has happened in the last year. So I'll give you kind of the fast track on it. So August 2020, I sold Enlisted to Pattern, right? Joined Pattern. A few months later, I was named Chief Design Officer of Pattern, and then CEO, Chief Design Officer of Enlisted. So it's kind of this dual role between the two companies. Now, Enlisted is still functioning as a separate agency, right? As a separate business, and there's about 50 of us, I think, in the studio, and in the Enlisted studio. So I'm still running Enlisted, have an amazing team behind me doing that. And now I'm starting to spend more and more time on the Pattern side, both on the leadership team as well as the M&A team. So you probably saw in the news last September, we announced our fundraise. We raised $225 million at a $2 billion valuation. Now, to give a little perspective, just a year prior, we had raised, Pattern had raised 52 million at a 450 or 475 million dollar valuation. So within 1 year time, which was actually more like 6 months time, they raised it at 2 billion. So, hyper growth phase over at Pattern. So then I was asked to be on the M&A team and begin to look at other businesses. So together, Pattern Enlisted created a new company that is also a separate company called Village. So villagebrands.com is the website that we just launched. So Village is a separate team outside of Pattern, outside of Enlisted, that works kind of as a sinew between the two companies. And there's 18 full-time employees at Village now. And there's an M&A team at Village. There's a brand team, a marketing team, and a sales team, and a product development team at Village. So what Village does is it goes out and hunts down companies that would be a good fit for the Pattern portfolio. And what we're looking for, and there's 5 of us on this team that kind of does the due diligence, and we give the thumbs up or thumbs down on the acquisition. What we're looking for are companies that are creating consumer products, consumer experiences that need help in either their e-commerce, Amazon or Shopify, their international presence, their design and branding, or their retail strategy. So if they're missing one of those elements, or they're just not thriving in one of those elements, we can really come in and surround them with the Village to be able to plug Enlisted in, to be able to plug sales in, to be able to plug Pattern e-commerce in, to be able to plug the international team in. And that's why we called it Village, because literally takes a village. And you guys know this from your own entrepreneurial endeavors, that entrepreneurs, they get to a certain place in their company or within their company's growth where it kind of outgrows them a bit. And honest, confident entrepreneurs know when they've gotten to that place. And that could be a $5 million company. It could be a $500 million company. They know when they're ready to have somebody else come in and really help them. And so we're looking for entrepreneurs who want to join the Village. We buy the company outright, okay, with both cash and Pattern stock. and then they join the village as the entrepreneur, founder, most likely still CEO of their company. And we begin to bolt on all of these different, expertise that we have between Enlisted and Pattern and the core village team. So, here we are a year later. We've got a couple $100 million in the bank. We're making investments. We are super busy with deal flow, right? Just like a private equity firm or a VC firm would have. And so we're looking at the deals, looking at the businesses. I come in as the brand and product voice. So I look at the business, I look at the product line, I look at the market potential, and I say, okay, here's what we could do to grow this brand, or here's what we could do to create a cohesive visual design language across their product line, which would then grow the company and grow the brand and better position us in the marketplace. And so then we buy these companies, we wash them through Enlisted, and we reposition, rebrand, redesign, and relaunch onto the Pattern platform. And so far, we have one acquisition. We also have one incubation that we looked at the data, Pattern's data, and said, hey, there's a few different companies playing in this category. We think that it'd be really interesting to do something different and uniquely positioned for this consumer over here that nobody's positioned for. And so we're incubating and launching our own brand, which launches in June.
That's incredible.
So that's what we're up to. There's a lot more going on, but that's kind of my piece of the Pattern Enlisted Village ecosystem.
What's what kind of is the discovery process like as you're looking for those potential acquisitions, and is it category focused? Like, are you looking specifically at a category first and then looking for acquisitions that fit a category?
No, we're not. So because Pattern's a data company, really, like if you strip everything back, they're a data company.
Yeah.
And being I think the third largest seller on Amazon worldwide. So they can mine more data than just about anybody else. So we use that data, and we've created a proprietary tool that can look through virtually every category, understand who's playing in that category, who's scaling, what SKUs are scaling, and to what velocity they are. And then we have a tool that we call the Where to Play tool. And it essentially gives us a matrix with millions of data points to show here are the categories that we could play in. And within those categories, so then you double click on that and it opens up to 500 more dots. And here are the companies within those subcategories. And here's the top 5 and what they're doing to ramp or to come back down. And we're looking for ramping up companies, not distressed companies. Yeah. So then we can go out and proactively approach them.
No, that's awesome. And regarding, so when is the first launch?
So the first launch already happened as a company called Trophy Skin that we acquired and then rebranded, relaunched. The website's new, but all of the products are still the old products. They're just OEM off-the-shelf China products, which are fine, right? But it's just there's no cohesion across the line. And so the first product launches most likely in July.
Okay.
And we already have a major retail partner who's already signed up for launch. So pretty exciting. And then we'll trickle the other 4 products that have been redesigned out over the next, year or so.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very interesting. I mean, I would love to dive into more of even just the journey of going through it with, all the way up until this launch. I think that'd be pretty interesting. Yeah. You said it was, what was the company? Trophy what?
Yeah, Trophy Skin. Trophyskin.com. You can see it's like microdermabrasion, it's red light therapy. It's essentially facial therapy tools.
Okay.
Yeah. So they're devices, they're beauty devices.
Yeah.
And then we're also launching, it hasn't launched quite yet, but we're launching into serums as well, because most of the devices are a way to make the serums that you use more effective. And so we're launching a serums line so that we can capitalize on the real market there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or the larger market. So one thing to understand though, as you process this village venture, is that there's this world of there's this world of aggregators, and so there's aggregators and accelerators. Okay. And the aggregators are companies like Thrasio or Perch or Heyday. Thrasio has fundraised a lot over the last year and a half. They've raised $1.3 billion in VC fundraising over the last year and a half. Okay. 1.3 billion. They weren't a company 4 years ago. It's crazy. So they've acquired over 200 companies now. And they've got a team of about 75 M&A people that are just hunting brands. And so what they're doing is they're aggregating these brands where they're buying them. Their model is that the founders don't stay with the company. Okay, so the founders get a check. They go buy a boat or start their next thing or whatever. Okay, then the company is folded into Thrasio, and they're e-commerce experts. And so the idea is, cool, we'll just squeeze all of these companies, we'll aggregate them into like this one vertical system that we have. And it'll be so efficient that they'll grow, and then, we'll sell them off or whatever. Well, the latest news, so the CEO was let go a few months ago. The investors are starting to actually withdraw their money. So actually taking money back out. And the latest word is that 87% of the companies that Thrasio has acquired have gone down in revenue post-acquisition.
What?
Mind blowing. Okay. Now that is hearsay. That is just through my network, what somebody very, very informed inside. And so just understand that. But what's important is that this aggregator model that has fundraised so much money is actually going to falter soon. So a good friend of mine, she runs the venture side of Blackstone. So she has a $3 billion fund that she deploys in startups. She's the one who bought Oatly. She's the one who bought Spain, all these, high profile acquisitions for Blackstone. And so I asked her, did you invest in the aggregator model? And she's like, no, I'm not going to invest in that. It's a broken model. It doesn't work. I'm like, why doesn't it work? And then she organically described to me the accelerator model, which is what Village is. What works is you buy the company, you retain the talent, and then you plug in what that company couldn't do already. So e-commerce, retail, design, whatever it is, and you accelerate that business rather than aggregate and squeeze the business.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I would love to know more about like the actual incubation process. Like, I think, to keep the people involved who've built it, there's a level of passion that maintains as because I'm sure that they want to see this thing continue to grow as well. Right. So, I don't know. I think it's very interesting to see, I don't know. I was going to ask if there were any is there a story that you can share about this most recent company, about you coming in and the incubation, and which part of Trophy Skin that you actually kind of fit into, and how you kind of helped that company, like incubated with that company?
Yeah. So with Trophy Skin itself, we didn't incubate that. So the difference between acquisition and incubation, right, is that like we acquired Trophy Skin,
right?
And then we went and did a significant consumer insights exercise where we really understood the consumer and what her needs were, and then we're able to reposition the company, the brand, and the product line. And incubation is looking at the data, looking at an opportunity in the market, and saying, okay, if we were to go into that market, here's how we would do it. And we create a go-to-market strategy, a positioning strategy, and a product strategy. And then once that strategy is blessed with the funding to make it happen, then we go in and we create that brand and deploy it.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Got it.
Yeah. And we've got, it'll be a multi-pronged approach. We'll be Shopify, DTC. We're going to be Amazon. We're going to be big box retail. We have one retailer in particular who has already told us, the buyers have already told us that they want to be our incubation partner. So whatever it is that we're launching, they want us to test it in that retailer.
Yeah.
So pretty exciting.
Yeah. Well, and those numbers are so massive too. Like just anything in e-commerce, I imagine it's just booming. And that's kind of something that we talked about the last time, is just the massive growth that the e-commerce industry is kind of seeing. But we actually just had a conversation with Mackenzie, who was it? Mackenzie, yeah, Mackenzie
Bauer.
from Thread Wallets, Mackenzie Bauer.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah, she's
you know,
great.
she was talking about supply chain issues, and you know, of course, e-commerce is growing massively. But I'm wondering, you know, as you guys are kind of thinking about what especially Pattern, and how is the supply chain, you know, potentially affecting you guys? Are you guys feeling that hit? Like, I don't know. I'm interested
Yeah.
in that. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, e-commerce has had a few different hits over the last year, right? You have the iOS update, you
Right.
have the skyrocketing prices of Facebook ads,
Mm-hmm.
right? In some cases of 10x in the last year. And then all the issues that come with Meta and Facebook. You've got supply chain issues, you've got the ports that are backed up, you've got, you know, still struggling to get people back to work. I mean, there's just so many cards stacked against physical product, even down to the raw materials. That, yeah, I mean, it takes a lot of ingenuity and a lot of kind of that entrepreneurial spirit to figure things out to be able to ship your product.
Yeah.
And get it here and land it.
Yeah.
Josh, before you just dive into either dive into that a little bit more, or maybe one of the projects like Mr. Beast, which I know my son wants to learn more about. He's a big fan.
Good.
I mean, it sounds like world domination. You guys have really hit a sweet spot with what you've been, you know, this journey you've been on for the last 18 months.
Yeah.
What I'm kind of interested in, who's missing from the village? What type of challenges are you facing in the village? Let's start with those.
Yeah, so we're actively building the village team. So M&A people, we have 3 data scientists on the team, so we're pretty stacked there. But we're definitely hiring in M&A for acquisition, and then we're also hiring in marketing. So we have incredible sales, like CPG sales team that have come over from, you know, the P&Gs of the world, like big, you know, bigger CPG companies. But what we're looking for is a brand marketer and a growth marketer to come in and be able to take receipt of the brands that we create at Enlisted or recreate at Enlisted, and then be able to take that and build the brand. Right? Because like you guys know this, but just because Enlisted creates a brand, a visual identity, a product design, a packaging design, a go-to-market, like just because we create all of those assets, we can launch the best brand in the world. Okay. But we can't grow that brand, because that's what marketing and sales and ops and all the rest of the team has to do to take that brand that we've created and then build it and grow it. And so that's what we're looking for on the village side, are brand marketers and growth marketers, which are 2 very different roles.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
And just some more kind of just questions that came to my mind as you were talking about this journey. First of all, going back to what you talked about, one of the biggest things was about balance. I bet this 18 months wasn't any good for balance, right? How's that going? And then I'm also interested in like what you've loved about this particular journey, what you love, what you want to do more of. But then the flip side, what are you wishing you could do a little bit less of?
Yeah, absolutely. So the journey is still very much a journey, right? So we haven't figured this out. We're literally writing the book, because this accelerator model, you have to have product development, brand creation, design, e-commerce. Like you have to have that whole network of people, and nobody's ever put that together before, right? You've got design agencies like Jen Lane in New York, who, you know, raised $50 million, shut their doors, and turned into Pattern Brands. Okay. And that's great. They took on money and they've been launching brands. But like I said before, I could launch the best brand in the world, but I can't build it. I can't go out and actually build that company and brand. That's not my magic. And so then on the other side, you've got the Thrazios of the world that are operators, right? Or M&A folks that think that all you have to do is just buy them and then it'll just run itself. And they're not creating, you know, they're not extending the brands. They're not growing the product lines. They're just squeezing them. And so those are kind of the 2 different models. Nobody's done what we're doing. And so it's some days it's really exciting. Some days it's really frustrating to create the entire ecosystem and have it function smoothly. I think my biggest frustration with it all is that I just don't have the time that I want to spend on it. So in December of last year, at our enlisted all hands on deck kind of year in review meeting, where we spend a couple hours just celebrating all of the work that we shipped in that year. And then I lay out the vision for the next year. And I stood in front of my whole team and I asked them, I said, you watch me every day, day in, day out, do what I do. What I need from you in each of your OKRs, your objectives and key results for the year, I need you to replace me. That's it. I need you to replace me. And it's not because I'm out. Like, Enlisted's my baby. I love Enlisted. I'll always be here, right? It's not that I'm out. It's not that I am bored or distracted. It's that I have this village and pattern venture that needs my attention to be able to successfully do what we're going to do and what we're doing. And so by the end of the year, the goal is for me to have a 50-50 balance between Enlisted and Village, whereas right now I have about a 90-10 balance.
Wow. Sounds like that. I mean, that's one of the biggest learnings you've had then, right? To get to the point of you saying that. Was it challenging to say it? I mean, did you kind of...
Yeah, for sure.
Because it's your baby? I mean,
for sure. Yeah, for sure. And the only way that I've been able to say that and mean it, right? It's not a bait and switch. It's real. And the reason that I can say that now is because I've been super fortunate over the last 2 years, really, to hire people who are just incredible at what they do. I've got a managing director who this year will become CEO of Enlisted as I step sideways into the chief design officer role. He's ran 4 out of the 5 top design agencies in San Francisco. We were the 5th one. We were the last ones. And, he's running the business of Enlisted. I've got a CFO who has come in and she's an amazing, she's got her MBA. She is an accountant, like she's a strategist to come in and really help refine the business of Enlisted. And so over the last 1.5, 2 years, I've been able to focus my time less on the accounts and running the business and more on the creative and the people. And really that's where I want to be spending my time. And so it's been a journey to get to this place, and December felt like the right time. I don't think that anybody was shocked, right? Like no mouths hit the floor, because this is something that we've been talking about, being stewards over your portion of Enlisted, and everybody bringing that Enlisted entrepreneurial mentality to each project and doing it in a way that is reminiscent of me, but their own flavor of it. And so I think we've gotten there, and the team's ready for this.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's a massive challenge. You like you said, you're creating something that has never existed before. It's a big vision. You're learning some big lessons. I mean, are there other what else have you learned? How are you? I mean, you're testing and learning, you're making it up as you go along. What else is had been significantly important to you? Is there a person, a mentor? Is there, you can't go and read the manual, right? But what has helped? What is some of the significant things that have stuck out to you that have helped you rise to the challenge?
So a couple of things: surrounding myself with people who are as hungry as I am, communication, just constantly picking up the phone and just connecting. I find that when I go a week or 2 without talking with the Village team or without talking to certain people on my team, things start to percolate, things start to in a negative way, right? And so it's just pick up the phone, let's just chat, let's just talk this through. And I think over the last year, especially the last 6 months, I've been doing a lot more of that. Just pick up the phone, let's talk it through, let's keep charging forward, because the direction that we're headed is for sure the right direction. How we're getting there is TBD, right? And that's where we're learning, we're prototyping, we're breaking, we're learning, and we're building. And so I'd say the people that surround me, the communication, and just the constant drive, the always on. Now, I know that doesn't speak well to like work-life balance and whatever, that Gen Z thing is. There's, just like any business that you start, it's like head down, here's the thesis, here's the vision. Now let's go execute on that.
Yeah, it's huge. Josh, where do you want to go next?
Hold on, before we go there, one thing I want to say, I want to correct. So I read all these articles on LinkedIn or whatever, Fastco, whatever, that's like, millennials don't know how to work, Gen Zs don't know. BS. I said that because work-life balance is more important to Gen Z and young millennial than any other demographic, any other group. I didn't say that because they're not hard workers. I am, the vast majority of enlisted is Gen Z or young millennial, and they work their asses off. They're hard workers. They're smart workers, super passionate. So you'll see me trolling on LinkedIn every once in a while when these articles come out about how the younger generation doesn't know how to work. And I'm just like, nope, different is not wrong.
I love that. I think that that's probably the most, especially after COVID, right? Like everybody's working differently right now. And I think that we're all kind of challenging what that means. And so, I think that's a good clarification, 100%. Can I ask a question then? I guess what I'm interested, like, there's so many interesting things that I want to talk to you about, like, just based off of kind of what you've said. Like, I'm interested in this idea of, what I looked like, if I go and look at Enlisted's website, right? Like I could just stare at what you guys have done at, like, I could just look at it for hours and just get lost in it.
Thanks.
Yeah. It's beautiful stuff. And, so I'm interested, we don't have to go into this right now, but I am interested in like the idea of, the creation of something like, the Allbirds in that kind of like pivotal moment where something might be launching, whereas there is more of a growth, like, as you mentioned, like more of a growth kind of orientation towards what you're trying to do. You're trying to stick with these brands for a much longer period of time. And I'm, I would be interested in just kind of understanding, how that might be different or challenging for you, understanding that you'd have like these big, massive moments where, like with Allbirds or with Arlo or whatever, you're launching this really beautiful thing, but now kind of what it sounds like is there's also this element of, well, we also have to work really hard to also grow this thing, which is going to take a lot of sweat. We're going to have to really kind of shepherd this thing. So I guess that's one question. I'll just stop there. Like, I'm interested in kind of your perspective on that kind of pivotal launch moment versus the growth and the energy that has to go into that, I guess, with the companies that you're working with.
Yeah, absolutely. So such a good point that you're making. So when you think about designers, there's kind of two different types of designers. And by this, I mean, these are separate from artists, right? Artists are a creative expression. Okay. Designers kind of fall into two categories. One is like a designer for designer's sake. Right. Like they're going to create the most beautiful thing you've ever seen and will likely also sell well because it's been designed well. And they're just, they're here to design for design's sake. And that's their mission. Love those designers. We've got a number of them on the team. Then there's the entrepreneurial designers. And those are the ones who are looking through the business lens of how do I grow this brand through my design work? And the vast majority of the enlisted designers fall into the entrepreneurial designer kind of category, all right? Because I look for those. And certainly that's part of my DNA because I always want our design, sure, like you said, like you go on, it's beautiful. We love working with the Allbirds and the Stances and the Arlos and whoever else of the world. Like, oh my gosh, we just did this. We just finished up this project for the largest, I don't know if I can say it. They're the largest home appliance company in the world. Okay. They're based out of China. And we just designed this whole like modular kitchen refrigeration concept. And I would love to have this in my kitchen, right? It's gorgeous. But really the reason that that's going to grow their business is because we're solving issues. We are appealing to the aesthetic of a household, of a consumer, of a person. And so we're blending the two together between the aesthetic and the business, right? And that's where you find the right balance. And so what's different about this is that we come in and we partner, like Allbirds, we partner for a period of months where we develop something that is going to help them grow or launch a certain product, and then we deliver it, and they go get it made, and they ship it, they launch it, and then all of a sudden we see, Kerry Washington on Instagram showing the Allbirds packaging, and we're like, oh, cool, that's exciting, right? Or like, especially the Allbirds, we won first place on the Die Line Awards. We won Best of the Best and Red Dot. Like it's done its round, which is really fun. But we hand it off, and it's theirs. That's the agency model. The venture model, or certainly the village model, is that these are now our brands and our companies. And so I remind the design team as they're approaching the projects, hey, remember that ultimately we're going to make the design decisions here, not the client, because we're the client. Remember that these shares that we have in Pattern stock are going to be affected by the success of these brands that we launch. Remember that we are stewarding this brand and the growth of this brand, and we'll do so over the next years rather than deliver and hope that they do well with it. And so it's a different mentality. It really is. You make different decisions in the design process because you truly have skin in the game.
Yeah.
And also that's a whole other depth of love for it. Yeah, no pressure. Exactly.
How often do you remind the team about that?
Yeah.
Every meeting.
Yeah. But no pressure. No pressure.
Yeah. How has it changed the Josh, I'm wondering, the methodologies that you're using. So based on what you just said, what is changing about how you approach design? Is it additional checkpoints? And I'd like to learn a little bit more about what your preferred design methodology is. I'm sure you use design sprints and design thinking all the time, but like, do you use a kind of an enlisted version of that, or now a pattern village one?
Yeah, we do. So, if we circle back to 10 minutes ago when I talked about like the top 5 agencies, if you wrote down, like, let's say that you hired each of us separately and you went through a design process together. In all honesty and humility, the process is the same. Okay, the steps are the same, unless you go hire IDEO and they've got their 50 baked steps that you have to take and all that kind of stuff. The process is the same. And so, and also if you take the top 5 studios, the products at the end of the day are all going to be gorgeous. Consumers are going to want these products. So then what makes any of us different at all? And the answer, I can't speak for the rest of the group, but the answer for Enlisted is twofold. And the reason that we were so, Pattern didn't buy Enlisted because we were a top agency. Pattern bought Enlisted because we're a design entrepreneurial agency. So we already had like 10 ventures under our belt where we traded, we discounted our rates and traded for equity in the companies. We already had skin in the game in almost a dozen different companies. And so the mentality had already shifted. So, I gave that example of like the agency consulting versus these are our own brands. We've already been working as if these were our own brands for a while with that filter of the reason I'm making these design decisions is because people are going to love this and thus grow the brand, grow sales, grow advocacy for that brand. So I wouldn't say that it was a massive switch for us because we're already there. And when you look at the differences between Enlisted and other agencies, even though the process is the same, what's different is 2 things: the degree of intense collaboration that we foster in the studio, of really bringing our partners in, really bringing them into the design team and learning from them, and not just treating them but them actually being part of our team, is super valuable to the process and very unique in the industry. And what that nets at the end is a design process that you've enjoyed. So instead of going to a top agency and being like, oh yeah, the work is beautiful, they were a pain in the ass to work with, but I guess it was worth it. What we can promise is you're going to have a beautiful product or beautiful brand that's going to go out into the market and crush it, but just as important, you're going to love the process of getting there.
Mm.
That these, our weekly cadence that we meet with you, that hour that we spend together, I promise you is going to be the best hour of your week.
Mm.
And that's how each of our teams, whether I'm on the call or not, that's how they approach it. They want to make sure that this is the best hour, the most exciting hour of their week, even when things get difficult and we're in the trenches with the client.
Yeah, you're making me want to come along to that best hour that you've got.
Yeah.
I'd like one of those hours. Just tell me though, why does that stand out? So what do you do that's uniquely different, or just that makes it as good as it is as an experience?
Yeah, so the personality of the people, right? We handcraft we curate our teams to make sure the right people are matched with the right clients and the right, industry. And then, and so then those designers or those account managers or strategists or branders are experts in that category, right? So we bring expertise to the category when we take on a project, if we've worked in that category before. And also, I think the biggest reason, I'll illustrate with a real example. So one of the top agencies in San Francisco that most of us came from to some degree, I hired one of their marketers. She was my first and really only marketer for a while at Enlisted. And she was on the team for about 2 weeks, and she came to me and she said, she's like, okay, so I know you told me this in the interview, but I'm still confused. Like, I feel like I've worked with everybody in the studio now, and not one of them is a dick. Like that's what she said. And I said, well, Nikki, I told you, I don't hire dicks. I hire the people who are so talented and want to collaborate, want to work together, want to challenge each other and lift each other. And like I said in the last podcast, it's not uncommon. I've seen it just in the last couple of weeks where we get to the end of a day and everybody's tired because they've been cranking, on projects, but they're done with something and they turn to the person next to them and they say, hey, I'm done. How can I help you? Instead of, leaving at 5:30. And that feeling of togetherness is carried through to our clients as well. And that's what that magic is, right? Where if you contrast that to other studios, the traditional model is you go hire the best agency. They're going to come in with all of their ego, with all of their, oh, well, we're the ones behind Allbirds and we're the ones behind blah, blah, blah. And so we're going to tell you what you need to do. And if you don't take it, you're stupid. Like, you're ignorant. You don't know what you're talking about. That's why you hired us. So I saw that happen time and time again. And I just thought, there's got to be a better way. Like, what if we enlisted our clients into our team, and likewise, they enlist us into their team? That's why we're enlisted. And it's just a big difference, Spencer. Like, if clients who've worked with other agencies and then they work with us, like, they don't go anywhere else. They don't go to another agency. And they'll say, like, hey, we loved working, or we loved the product that we got or the brand that we got from this other agency, but it wasn't worth the pain of the egos in the room.
Yeah, I thought you were just going to say you send, scones to to the meeting every time and like their favorite snacks, but it's more than that, right?
So right. It's way more than that. We do though. Like, we do notice what our clients like, and we make sure that we stock those things when they come in.
Great. Yeah, great stuff. Josh, where do we want to go? Because I definitely want to touch on maybe Mr. Beast, but maybe that's the wrong thing to go into. I don't know now.
Oh, dude, the Mr. Beast thing's exciting. I'm happy to share.
I would love to go into that. Can I just ask one last question though, just about the acquisitions? And I'm just wondering, the stake in the game, that we all have, that you have stock in now Pattern, and the decisions have just a different weight to them, but I'm wondering, I know it's maybe early days for this, but I'm interested in the acquisition and the blending of, obviously you're all very talented, and I'm just wondering, it's kind of a question of what's off the table for what can be changed within the company, and especially this idea that, well, if you acquire my company, I'm also going to be involved with that. And I'm wondering culturally, and just in the, maybe, like I said, maybe it's too early days to know this, but I'm interested in how like how difficult is that once you get through that acquisition, and and the adoption or immersion of multiple cultures into the same thing as it relates to, while we're also kind of rebranding, redesigning, and I mean, it seems like an interesting little conflict that might kind of happen in that moment. But yeah, I'm interested in your thoughts on that.
It's very insightful, Josh, and that is an element of what's happening here, because when you start to meld so many different companies, you need to have your core ethos, your core mission, vision, values, which Pattern does have, and we need to make sure that the types of companies, the types of entrepreneurs, CEOs that we bring into Village are that type of person. It's not just that they've run a good business, but they're that type of person who have similar values that Pattern does, or that we do. And so far we haven't had too many issues. Some for sure. I think we've skirted some issues. I know there was one company that we were looking at that would have been really, really fun to be able to go in and design in that space. It's a category that I've never designed in, and I've wanted to. And I hung out with the owner, and we talked design, and we talked, manufacturing, and what I took away, super nice guy, and he's built a successful business, but he thinks in his mind that like everything that they've done, it's the pinnacle of design. Like it couldn't get better. You don't need to invest any more into it than what they've already done. And so even when I was point blank, and I'm like, yeah, but we can bring Enlisted in to do this. And he's just like, we don't need that. We already have that. And it's like, ooh, no, you don't, and so we that and other things too, we've been able to fish some of those people out, and for me, give the thumbs down, because I know that they're not going to be the kind of person who's going to be able to come in and appreciate what we do,
right, and
value what we do. I know, Trophy Skin, I was on one of the first calls with that founder, and he's just like, there was, especially at the beginning, a bit of like, why are you calling my baby ugly? And I'm like, well, I'm not calling your baby ugly. What I'm saying is you have a consumer that you're speaking to, but that consumer set can be much broader. And if we create a better design, then it's going to solve the needs of a broader consumer set, thus being able to grow the business. And here's how we do that. And once I showed him the work, he's just like, man, I could have never afforded or never got the attention of an Enlisted before this. And so he appreciated what we were bringing to the table and enabled us to do our best work.
Yeah.
So those are some of the traits that we're looking for and looking to avoid.
Yeah, that's really interesting. No, I appreciate that. Yeah. And I can imagine, especially for entrepreneurs, there's a whole variety and a whole spectrum of entrepreneurs out there, but for somebody who puts their passion and energy and life into something, I can imagine there's just a group of them that would be very, it would be very difficult to let go of some of those things. So I think that's really interesting. Totally. But so yeah,
well, that's why they have to want to be part of it, right? That's why they need to, like, we're not looking for people who are ready to check out. We're looking for people who are ready to double down and who see, oh my gosh, I could be on Pattern's platform, or oh, I could go international, or wait, I can work with Enlisted at cost. Like, what? Okay, great. Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's I imagine it's a hard thing to say no to. Like it does sound amazing, especially when you see, like, I don't know, just knowing how much the industry has grown, especially with this idea of a USP of Village. Like it takes a village, like that alone. Like, I mean, how lonely it is to be an entrepreneur, I can imagine, like, and how many unanswered questions there are. Like it takes a village. Yes. Okay, that resonates with me. I'm in with that alone, like help me figure some of this stuff out.
Exactly.
But yeah, so
it is very lonely to be an entrepreneur and to be a CEO. It's very lonely because at the end of the day, you're responsible for everything.
Yeah.
It all comes down to you. And oftentimes we don't have people next to us that we can, truly partner with. And that's been one of the fortunate things about having some of the newer hires that I have, is that they're partners. And I'm able to, we're able to have those types of discussions and not be so lonely.
Yeah.
For many years, I've been very lonely in that sense.
Yeah. So let's dive into Mr. Beast, if that's okay, because I know it's an interesting topic right now. He was just on JRE, right? Like, I mean, so the world knows about what he's doing.
Yeah, he threw down for like 3 hours. Dude's got so much energy.
Yeah, I mean, but Feastables and the Beast Burger and a lot of the stuff that that you guys have done, I would just love for you guys to lay it down, and kind of say, how were you involved, and kind of talk about the process, talk about what you guys created, and because it's really cool stuff.
Yeah. And Josh, is this the point where you've delivered some of the Mr. Beast burgers to my house, right? Is it?
Yeah, that's it, right? Oh shoot, I should have done that. What was I thinking? Man, where's the touch? You know what though? I'll go grab some of the chocolate bars. I got a bunch.
Yeah. I don't know if you know this, Spencer. So I listened to that episode, and the whole time I was thinking about Bo, and I was thinking about Enlisted. But it's interesting because from what I understand, like, they actually give restaurants the recipes, all the packaging, all that stuff. And you can go and order those things from the restaurant, and they'll make it to the Mr. Beast specifications. Like, it's really interesting.
Yeah. So cool.
Yeah.
So what you're describing, Josh, is called a ghost kitchen.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's a pretty new model, really, that cropped up during the pandemic. So here's how this went down. So Stance Socks and Apparel is one of our clients, and one of the product developers from Stance broke off and left Stance and joined a group called Knight. Okay, Knight Media. I think it's just Knight.com now. And that's this guy named Reed, who is the manager of Dude Perfect. So he grew Dude Perfect. Then he and Dude separated, and he picked up this kid named Jimmy. And so he and Jimmy started working together, and he was representing him. And all of a sudden, Jimmy starts getting like crazy traction. Okay. And Jimmy Donaldson is Mr. Beast. So now the kid's he's like 23 years old. He's got, I think as of today, he's like 87 million subscribers. His goal is to hit 100 by the end of the year. He'll easily hit 100 million by the end of the year. So he's top 5 YouTubers in the world. And he's just got a cool energy about him. Okay. His whole thing is that he has, earned this money from YouTube and other things and other groups that donate or, to his charities. And then he just does really cool giveaways, and it's honest, like they're real giveaways to real people with his real money. Or he'll fundraise with others, with Elon Musk or Bezos or whoever, to like go and, buy this forest so that nobody can deforest it, or whatever his thing is. It's really cool. And so Jimmy was, Mr. Beast was just thinking through kind of like his lifestyle, the types of foods and snacks and what he wants. And then all of a sudden the world shut down. And he's like, shoot, there's like all these local restaurants that are just empty now. Like nobody can go to them. And not all that many people like really know how to do food delivery. And even if you do order Uber Eats, like which restaurants take it, which ones don't? And then could you even get it delivered to your school? Like, how does that work? So what he did is he leaned into this ghost kitchen model where, like you said, he created a proprietary recipe for each of his burgers. And then each one is named after one of his buddies on the show. And so then they would pre-qualify a restaurant to be able to make the burgers, the menu items up to, their standards. And then they would be contracted as a ghost kitchen for Mr. Beast Burger. So he launched with 300 locations day one. And then within the first year, he's up to 1,200 locations. So it's a pretty big effort. And all you have to do is download the Mr. Beast Burger app, and you can order there and then have it delivered to your school, to your college, to your dorm, to wherever you are, you can have it delivered to. And so what that did for the local, microeconomies is that it started giving these restaurants opportunity to make food and deliver it to people who, were sheltered in place. And it's only grown since that's been lifted, because now people, enjoy and want this model. So that's Mr. Beast Burger. And our participation with that was the brand identity, visual identity, iconography, illustration, packaging design, the website design, the collateral, the launch material, like basically anything visual that you see with Mr. Beast Burger, that's what we created. And what was cool about that is that it was his first brand to launch under the Mr. Beast Burger brand, under the Mr. Beast brand. But we didn't want it to be just a straight translation of Mr. Beast, because like, how do you take a bunch of swag and like make a burger joint out of it? It doesn't really work. And so we wanted Mr. Beast Burger to have its own identity that was tied to Mr. Beast himself and the brand that he's built. So it felt like they belonged, but it wasn't just an exact translation. So then as that's launching, that's exciting. And, there's these conversations behind the scenes of, hey, Jim, you're so hot right now. That's awesome. Are you always going to be that way? And everybody knows that content creators go up and then they go down, right? And they're super popular. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, remember when we used to always watch those videos?
Yeah.
And so the question becomes, all right, Jimmy or fill in the blank content creator, you have the world's attention right now. What are you going to do with it? And what are you going to create around your ecosystem, your brand, that can have greater longevity than you? And that's why we created the Feastables brand. So the Feastables brand is now the parent brand that anything that Mr. Beast puts out, anything that Ghost or Zach or any of the content creators within Knight Media will all be under this new CPG, consumer packaged goods brand, Feastables. And then they went and hired Jim Murray, who was, I think he was the COO of RX Bar. So the dude knows, like he was the one behind all the operations of growing RX to the acquisition. And so now he's the president of Feastables, and, total industry veteran to now start launching brands or sub brands or products under Feastables, right? So everything you see now is going to be like Feastables and then Mr. Beast Bar, Feastables, and then whatever the next thing is. And even within collaborations as well. And so we launched the Mr. Beast Bar. This is the Quinoa Crunch. It is Peruvian chocolate, working with a chocolatier in Peru. And it's, it's organic ingredients. It's super high quality, like it's good chocolate. And it's fun because classic Mr. Beast, you've got a QR code on the back and then a tear off back here for like to win a prize, because everything that he does, you got to give. Mm-hmm. And then during the design process, we thought, okay, cool. Like the graphics are one thing. We can make it super fun. It's kind of like, early 90s inspired Mr. Beast, wrappers. But then once you open it up, it was the first time that we ever designed an actual chocolate bar. So check this out. So the bar itself is a custom designed bar, and you can see these ripples that the bottom part, which is about 80% of the bar, 90% of the bar, says devour. And that's for you just to devour this delicious chocolate. But in classic Mr. Beast fashion, the top part is perforated and it says share. So it's like one more little brand touch point or brand extension, right? Where it's like, hey, what does Mr. Beast do? He shares. He shares his wealth. He shares his property. He shares his fun. And so we always want to make sure that people are sharing. And so we actually designed it into the bar itself to break off and encourage sharing of it. And it's funny because I've kind of walked this through in a couple of different podcast interviews and stuff. and like multiple people now have been like, oh, wow, I didn't even notice that. I just ate the whole bar. I'm like, dude, how did you not notice that it says share? But I guess the chocolate's pretty good. So, and it was fun too, working with the Peruvian manufacturer, because usually in production, you have this thing called MOQ, minimum order quantity, where you have to hit a certain minimum in order for that manufacturer to produce your product. So usually it's like 10,000 units or something along those lines. And so the Peruvian chocolatier, the chocolate company, like they had never heard of Mr. Beast, right? And they're like, so we do have like a 5,000 minimum order quantity. Is that going to be a problem? And they're like, well, our first order is going to be 1 million bars. Is that going to be a problem? So for launch, they freaking ordered 1 million bars and in 3 different flavors. So you can see here in the variety pack, right? You've got the just like the almond chocolate, the quinoa crunch, and the OG right here. So pretty fun stuff. And, you know, a lot of the food, especially in natural and organic foods packaging that we do, we were able to bring, like it's super fun and super cool and a good extension of Mr. Beast, but also we were able to bring in some classic CPG design, you know, tricks that not only sell the bar because it's Mr. Beast, but also because you've got this like gorgeous chocolate bar that's coming out of this like dripping, you know, gooey chocolate, and like really bringing that taste appeal out, and being a legitimate chocolate bar rather than just like a little project or a little, you know, something that Mr. Beast put out.
Yeah. That's cool. How involved were you in this specific project from a kind of the design sessions? Were you in them?
Pretty involved. Yeah. I was pretty involved with this one.
Is there a memorable moment? Like, I'm conscious that some of the designers will tell us about that, but our audience, plenty of our audience may not be familiar with the design process. Like, just paint us a picture of what was happening in that moment and what they were trying to achieve, and what your memory is.
This is great. So quick design process. We start by absorbing, right? A kickoff meeting where we just absorb. What are your goals? What are you trying to do here? What's going to make you unique? You know, what does the market look like? And they just feed us information. And a lot of that is assumptive, and that's fine at that stage. And then we speak with consumers. We do some quick quant, sometimes some qualitative insights where we just need to understand that consumer, what they're going to want, what they're going to buy. And then we go into what we call vision. So it's the vision phases where we create vision boards, which is a group of imagery that it goes far beyond like a mood board. It's a vision for the world in which this brand or this product is going to live. And if this product had already existed, it would have been aspirational enough to have been included in our vision board had it existed. So it kind of sets the bar for where we're going, and then creatively point us in a certain direction. So color palette, type, packaging, form factors, materials, people, homes, stuff like that. So once the vision set, then we go into the concept exploration phase, where it's just cranking out as many concepts as we can. And then we brush a whole bunch of them to the side. And then I think we presented to the night team, probably 20, 25 concepts on the first round. And they were pretty fleshed out concepts. It wasn't just little sketches. And so we had all these different directions that we could have gone, and we whittled it down to like 5 different directions. And then the next call, Jimmy came on. And so we're presenting it to him, and he's like, ton of energy, right? And it wasn't super distant from where we ended up, the concepts at this point, but he goes, no, guys, like, you just got to put my face on it. That's all. Like, just put my face, like the whole thing, like wherever you have chocolate, just like put my face. and we're like, Jimmy, dude, 100%, man. We'll come back to you with a few concepts with your face on it. And so he came back with, he has this kind of like signature move where he's like this, and he did that. And then we did like this other stuff. And then just like this, his little like goatee thing, like, all these different illustrations and stuff. And so we presented it to him in a spirit of collaboration. They were great concepts. And then I said, Jimmy, let's just remember one thing. I know that people are going to buy this because it's coming from Mr. Beast, and they want to be they want to participate with you in this venture, but they're going to eat it and repurchase it, which is going to help grow this into a legitimate company and not just a stunt if the chocolate is good. And in order for that to sell, we need to follow some pretty tried and true CPG design elements, one of which is taste appeal. So you got to have like juicy, delicious chocolate on the cover. And so we just went back and forth, and we finally chose the one with Jimmy's face on it. And we delivered the files because that's what he wanted, delivered the files. And then about a month and a half later, we got him back from press. and guess whose face was gone? and the chocolate was back. So I'm glad that they did that. I have nothing against Jimmy's face. He's got a beautiful face, but it's for selling chocolate bars, you want people to be attracted to that chocolate. So whenever it comes up in the studio, it's become just an ongoing thing. It's like, oh, just put my face on it. It's awesome. And he wasn't wrong is the thing, right? Like people see him and they're like, oh, I want that. I want Mr. Beast. So from a self-branded standpoint, that was right. But from a Feastables one level up and then launching a Mr. Beast bar sub-brand, the right decision was to sell chocolate. And ultimately that's what we went with. And I was just emailing with Jim, who's the CEO now. And he says that he's crushing it, like absolutely crushing it. So pretty exciting.
Yeah.
And for all those that don't know Mr. Beast by the way he looks, that wouldn't, that's probably a good call anyway. I actually know Mr. Beast. You know how I know Mr. Beast? For a whole year, my son would obviously homeschooled through COVID. So to keep an eye on whether he's playing games or not, he was right in front of my home office monitors. So from where I'm stood right now, I could see his display monitor. And so over a year, I must have watched the corner of my eye dozens and dozens of Mr. Beast videos, which I wouldn't usually, I guess, watch, but they're pretty clever stuff. So
it is.
In relation to what you just shared, you say it came back from press, but did they do some A/B testing on it then and figured out it didn't work, or did you do A/B testing?
Yeah, so this process was so scrappy that we didn't do any post-design A/B testing outside of the studio. So generally speaking, we would, but this one is just because it was so scrappy that we just did testing in the studio, and then they did it on the night side as well. I think that's probably what tipped the scales. Wow. Chocolate.
How early in the design and concept process was the share and devour thing? Like, was that in there?
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, like, I love that, and I think that touches something that, like, I wish more people could experience, like when you come up with those moments. Like I think that there's just something about that's so clear from a brand, a story, just every perspective you can imagine. It's like all the dots have connected. And I'm wondering, so how early on was that part of concept?
So I'm glad that you pulled that out, Josh, because like I said before, there's a number of studios in the world that could create something that's beautiful and that people are going to like.
Right.
Okay. And we had, I don't know, dozens of chocolate bar designs, 3D printed. We actually poured our own molds so that we could test, the patterns and the details with chocolate, the actual chocolate that had been shipped up from Peru, and melt it down and pour it into our silicone molds. And so there's a lot of testing that went into making sure that this bar could be executed with the detail that we needed it to. And it would have been a great chocolate bar, a well-designed chocolate bar with these cool ripples and details in it. And there's lots of cool chocolate bars out there. But where we really thrive and focus on is that we're always seeking to create that emotional connection between this inanimate object and the consumer. And even though if we had just left it at a cool design, a cool ripple design, or a cool faceted design, or all these different concepts that we had, people would have thought, oh, that's a cool chocolate bar. That's the coolest chocolate bar I've ever seen. But it still wouldn't have communicated Jimmy's brand, his ethos, his mission and what drives him. And so the emotional touch point or the emotional hook here was this like physical manifestation of his sharing, of his giving, of his love for his followers. And so somebody had just sketched it out. I don't remember which designer it was. And I remember when it happened. And the idea was like, what if we did like 50-50? What if, it was like you share half and then it ended up being like, well, actually, like you want most of it for yourself, but you want to share enough of it. So like, we did a few different models and printed them and poured, the prototypes of chocolate and everything. And in the end, it was like this 80-20 split because you bought a chocolate bar, you want to eat it. But we always want to remind people to be kind and share.
Yeah. That's amazing. I love that. I love that detail. I love that it has that emotional connection to it. Like, I don't know, there's just something about that. Like, I would buy that chocolate bar just for that. Like, and I don't know,
Yeah.
it's amazing. It's really cool. Anyway,
I'm going,
and that's Mr.
go,
Beast.
yeah,
you know,
right.
That's him.
Exactly.
I'm gonna go get one tonight. I think I'm pretty hungry right now. I might come down to your office actually. Half an hour.
Yeah, come down. I got boxes of them here.
It's interesting because those moments. I mean, it would have still been a great truck, right? It probably would have had just as much success, maybe without that bit, right? But that just makes it totally on his personality, and that those moments don't always come. They often come. We've had them, Josh, right? Many times, but sometimes they come by accident or just one throwaway comment. Just, is there a part of your methodology? I know we need to finish up now, but is there a part of your methodology that you found to be more successfully getting to that point? Because they do just happen, kind of by accident sometimes.
Yeah, they do. You're right. I think the way that we get there consistently isn't so much a happy accident as much as it is the people. So what I mean by that is we are always striving in our design process to understand the consumer, love the consumer, and create something that consumer will love. And so we know them. We get to know them very, very well. And we get to know them well enough that we can create something that they're going to lust after. Now, in Mr. Beast's case, we needed to get to know him, but we didn't get to spend a lot of time with him. So because he's so busy, right? It was mostly the night media team that we were working with on a day-to-day basis. But the times that we did get to meet with Jimmy, it wasn't as high energy as his videos because that's his stage presence, right? But watching so many of his videos and then spending time with him and hearing him talk about his mission, we got to know the person and we got to love the person. And we got to get to a point where we could create something that he would love and that more importantly, he would love to give to others. And that emotion there, that connection, that intimate, connection is what we're always seeking. And so it starts with the consumer and it ends with the consumer. And with Jimmy's case, where the brand is a person, it starts with Jimmy, it ends with Jimmy in the design process, but ultimately it ends with the consumers that he loves and that love him back. And how can we delight them every time?
Yeah, no, I love that. So really falling in love with your customer and really thinking like him, right?
Yes.
Really, that's great.
Yes.
Well, Josh, we need to wrap up and we need to let Bo go.
Do we
home.
though? This is so fun, you guys. I know. This is awesome. I love spending time with you guys.
Well, maybe
I'm going to give you a challenge. No, not even a challenge, but I hope that I don't know how you reward and recognize your teams, but even when someone comes up with that idea, and I know it was collectively, I guess they suggested that idea and it got adapted and it landed. Hopefully they get an unlimited supply of chocolate at home, that individual. I mean, come on.
They have more chocolate than they know what to do with. We've got bars. We bought our bars, by the way, because we wanted to support the business. But I bought so many Mr. Beast bars for both the Oakland and the Salt Lake studio. This was all ran out of the Salt Lake studio, but bought bars for both studios so that everybody can have them. So the designers have so much chocolate. I think it's a great idea, though, Spencer.
This was a great conversation, and yeah, I know. So we can guarantee you that this episode is going to come out very, very soon. We're going to try to partner your first episode up with this episode. We'll let viewers know of the time difference and everything like that. But I'll tell you what, even going into this interview, Spencer and I were talking about this one, and we'll usually prepare a little bit for an interview, as you know, right? Like you've experienced that preparation, and sometimes we have certain questions that we want to ask, and
reconnaissance team over there.
Yeah, a little bit, but this one felt more conversational. Like we were ready to get deeper in certain things, and I think it'd be fun.
Yeah.
Ideally to get you on again at some point, and go even deeper into something that's just now coming, whenever something new comes out, we'd love to have you on again. And But yeah, we'll get these
Absolutely.
2 episodes out, and just great conversation.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
Well, let's just plan on, every year, let's touch base. I mean, it's been a
100%.
year and so much has changed. Let's just make sure that every year we're touching base and spending an hour together, and more than happy to do so. And gosh, I'm learning so much, you guys. Every day I'm learning.
Yeah.
So I live by an all ships rise mentality. So happy to come and just share anything I can.
Yeah,
That's
cool.
Hopefully it's helpful.
That's fantastic. And maybe the next session we do, we've started to do live podcasts with a live audience at Kiln. And this would have been a full house, right? But we've done it through Zoom this time, but next time let's do a live audience and go from there. And I'd love to get into maybe the village community.
Yeah.
And the strength of that and the gaps in that, and how do you really, all these folks, and I'm not sure how many you have now, that you would classify as
18 full-time on Village.
Right.
Village.
Okay. But everyone,
which did consist of some enlistees as well. So we actually pulled somebody over from enlisted side into the Village side. So it's a very cross-pollinated team. But that would be a good episode, Spencer, to actually win the Village. So the Village team is mostly remote. So everybody's from all over. And like I know right now the Village team's in Utah at Patterns headquarters this week, but usually they're in Atlanta and Chicago and LA and wherever else. But one time when they're in town, it'd be really interesting to get 3 or 4 people from Village. We get the head of product development, brand, myself, the president, retail. Like, be interesting to get all of that together, data, and have 5 of us on the stage to be able to really break down what we're doing.
That'd be awesome.
Great stuff. Well,
cool.
Any last bit of advice for our audience, or anything you want to finish off with?
Yeah, I know this takes a lot of effort. So instead of me giving advice, I'm going to give you some praise and gratitude. I know this takes a lot of effort, what you guys are doing. And I just so appreciate you keeping the momentum and these interviews and extracting leadership and thought. And I enjoy listening to the episodes, and just want you guys to know that you've got an audience out there that really appreciates what you do. So thank you.
Thank you. That means a lot. Thank you so much for saying that.
Yeah, thanks, Bo.
Yeah.
And have a wonderful evening with your family.
Thanks.
Hopefully you can go
great
home
to
now.
see you. Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
All right, you guys.
See you.
Josh, Spencer, talk to you later.
Thanks,
See ya.
All right. Thanks for hanging out with us, everybody. We hope you enjoyed today's episode of the Swell Podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe. And if you did enjoy the podcast, please be sure to leave a review and get involved in the conversation on all the major socials at the Swell Pod. We'll see you next time. Thank you.